Liftoff in 3, 2, 1.
Nice to see you. Nice to see you again. Sorry about that hiccup there.
No problem.
Well, thank you for that. Well, I'm always trying to be respectful for your time, so I want to just start out by just saying welcome. This is Jerry Pujals, your host at the Body Mind Index, and I'm gracefully accompanied by the one esteemed Dr. Goldhammer, who's the founder of the True North Health Center and who also helped change my life in so many ways. So I couldn't be happier to meet with you today to just maybe report a little bit on what's been going on with me, but then go into the how and why you made all this happen, and maybe dive a little further into your explanations as to how this was even possible. So where am I right now, Dr. Goldhammer? Well, it's been a little bit over a year since I first heard your words on the Chef AJ show and also on the Rich Roll podcast. And I'm down about 80 plus pounds. None of it has been easy, but I'll tell you what I realize now is my best friend. My best friend is time. The more time passes between that last bite of salt, oil, sugar, and for me, it goes a little further than that because I really listened to your words. I went salt, oil, sugar, caffeine, alcohol, animal products, dairy. I almost want to cry. I went and removed all those things from my life last November, so it's significantly over a year ago. And I hear many people question what quality of life can someone have if they did something that extreme. I can tell you what that quality of life is like. What that quality of life is like is the impact it's had on those closest, nearest, and dearest to me. It hasn't been without challenges and without resistance, but you know, you can only lead people by changing yourself. And now I've learned that to a whole other different level. I realized that the more I improve me, the more I help those around me without having to speak much about it. And it's been just the most beautiful thing. The fact that, you know, the other day I was on the Chef AJ show. She had me on a thing, and you know, I'm close to almost 10,000 views on it. And it's so exciting that even sharing this with people and paying it forward, that's why I felt it was important after I got off that show that I call you, reach out to you, tell you where I'm at, tell you where I'm going, maybe tell you what I'm struggling with. And yeah, let's dive in.
Sounds great.
Okay. I love that when I talk to you, we are going to get right down to business, man. Thank you for that. So, you know, at 56, I realized that due to inflammation, chronic back pain, and all those things. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to post a photo of this. I'm going to put my finger up. So my handy dandy after production person, Irisham, puts a nice little picture right there about what I look like before. And I'm going to have him send that to you as well, because I think it will blow your mind. So that picture was not something that I had ever seen. My wife just sent it to me. And I think it's a picture of me that she took while I was working on a project outside in the yard. And I was in so much chronic pain, so much inflammation. I can hardly move, along with two lower discs that were bulged, along with a diagnosis from the doctor of hypertension and getting ready to put me on, you know, the good old fashioned statins. So I was very much on my way there. I keep saying that I started this journey at 280 pounds. My wife says I was well over 300 pounds when I took that picture. She knows one thing about me. I will not ever jump on a scale until I lose 20 or 30 pounds. So I was probably over 300 pounds and did not ever want to see that on a scale, because it probably would have put me in a state of depression that I wouldn't have been able to more than likely handle. So when I came across what you were saying, some things really clicked for me. And it was the idea of salt, oil, and sugar combined together being a perfect recipe for you can't just have one. And I connected with that from the good old-fashioned Ruffles, or was it Pringles or Ruffles? That I don't know which one of them, but one of them told us and actually dared us to just have one, and all well because they knew you couldn't do that. But changing the caffeine for me, it's a person that's pretty hyper by nature and has a sensitive nervous system. Taking the caffeine out of it for me has been like probably somebody's definition of being put on Xanax or some kind of calming drug. Just by deleting that from my life, I'm a calmer person by nature, and I can actually take the pauses that I'm taking right now. I couldn't do that before because my nervous system was so hyper alert. So at the end of the conversation today, what I want to do is I want to talk to people about a reset that I'm doing right now. I want to run it by you. So I hope everybody stays on till the end to talk a little bit about this reset that I'm doing, because I found that I've put on some pounds in the way of fat by way of a DEXA scan that I did last week. And it concerns me because I'm still hyper aware on the scale. But when I saw it on the DEXA scan, the fact that there's some fat coming back, I think I know the reasons why, but I want to run them by Dr. Goldhammer, and I want to tell him what I'm doing about it and see if I get his buy-in on that. But I want to go just real simple, real basic for everybody, and just dive into the things that I removed from my diet, Dr. Goldhammer. And what I like to do is sort of rapid fire, one of them at a time, and kind of get through them in a way that people can understand what it is that we're talking about and how this can possibly affect them the way it has affected me in such a positive way. So for me, it has been, again, to name them out, to call them out again, is salt, oil, sugar, caffeine, alcohol, which I was never a big drinker, but big enough, very social drinker, animal products, and processed foods. Again, people seem to think if one removes these things from their life, there is nothing left. And what I'm going to challenge them is similar to what I've heard you say before. No, once you remove these things from your life, then everything is available. It's a real different paradigm. And I find that you were so right. So thank you so much for that. So on rapid fire, let's start with a simple one. Let's start with salt. Why can removing salt from a diet be beneficial and maybe a reasonable place to start?
Well, let's start even more basic than salt. Let's just remind everybody that what we're talking about here is not just being fat. It's having a particular type of fat called visceral fat that collects around your belly and organs, that acts like a tumor, and that it produces inflammatory byproducts and leads to heart disease, cancer, diabetes, depression, autoimmune diseases, etc. So the real enemy here is this visceral fat in particular. And so you can have a thin person who doesn't look overweight, but they're over fat, and they can have disproportionate amounts of visceral fat as well. You don't have to just be big to have this problem. So number one, we're trying to get rid of, essentially like you would if you had a tumor, you're trying to get rid of a certain type of excess amount of tissue so that your body can heal itself. And the ways you do that is, number one, stop doing the things that cause it to accumulate, which is meat, fish, fat, eggs, dairy products, oil, salt, and sugar. And instead, eat a whole plant food SOS-free diet. So fruits, vegetables, grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds. Now, the question comes up about salt. How could something with no calories make you fat? That just seems ridiculous. How many calories are there in salt? 0. And yet we're claiming that people that eat salty foods eat more than people that don't. And it's called passive overeating. And it's true in humans, it's true in animals. If you give people a pile of food, tell them to eat their fill of it, whatever it is, even if it's a healthy food like rice or whatever, they'll eat a certain amount. Then the satiety mechanism in their brain kicks in, and then they feel full. If everything else is equal, but you salt that food up, you will eat more food before your brain tells you you're full. Now, some people say, yeah, because it tastes better. But that's what tasting better means, is that whatever you're shoving in your hole has more dopamine stimulation in the brain than the other stuff you were shoving in your hole. And so if you stop shoving stuff in your hole that's high in salt, you'll tend to eat less of that, whatever it is, than if you don't. So passive overeating. Now, the other thing about salt is it tends to alter your gut microbiome. The trillion creatures that live in your gut that are part of your immune system and produce so many important factors or toxic factors. Salt is an active preservative. Why do you think they salt meat and stuff? Is to keep the bacteria from being able to thrive on it. Well, when you put a really high salt diet into the gut, it's going to alter your gut microbiome, the type of organisms that live there and what they poo in you. When you think about it, you've got 5 pounds of creatures swimming around in your intestinal tract, eating and drinking and pooing inside you. And what they poo in you depends on what you feed them. If you feed them meat, fish, fowl, eggs, dairy products, salt, and sugar, you will have completely different organisms than people on a healthy plant-based diet. And what those organisms are pooing in you could be TMA, which becomes trimethylamine oxidase and causes cancer, versus vitamin K, which is like fertilizer. So if you want fertilizer instead of toxic waste, feed your organisms a whole plant food SOS-free diet.
Thank you. That was so beautifully said. Let's dive into oil. So oil, Chef AJ said to me on the episode that I had the pleasure of participating in, I asked her, people keep asking me, Jerry, I can't remove all three. If I had to remove one, which one should I do? I know I've heard your answer before to that, but Chef AJ did say that if you are overweight and you wanted to lose weight, probably consider removing oil because it's it's the highest form of calorically dense foods. What would you say to
the
that?
Easiest one to eliminate. Salt's probably the hardest one to eliminate for all kinds of reasons, but oil has 9 calories per gram. John McDougall says the fat you eat is the fat you wear, because it's so efficiently converted and stored by the body that you can do a fat biopsy of a person and tell what kind of fat they've been eating, because it ends up being stored rather than consumed. So I would say that eliminating oil of all kinds, including olive oil, is certainly a useful tool. We want 15 to 18% of the calories of the diet to be fat, not 30 or 40 or 50% like the average person is doing. And so the best way to do that is eliminate all highly processed fractionated foods, and including fractionated oils.
I have to go back to salt for a second. I'm sorry. So one argument that several people have been blasting me with, and they keep going, and they're pretty intense about it, is that we need salt to live. Can you talk about that?
Well, you need calories to live too, but you don't need, you don't need to buy a bottle of oil in order to be able to survive. So you get all the sodium, that 500 to 1,000 milligrams of sodium you need from a whole plant food diet. What they're forgetting is that when you're eating this type of a diet where you're eating a lot of vegetables, you actually get all the sodium you need from your whole natural food diet. You don't have to add, and if you're really concerned about it, you could increase the amount of high sodium natural foods like celery and chard and tomatoes. There's lots of ways to increase the sodium intake if that's a desire of yours. But you do get the sodium that you need in your diet. And even if you're an athlete and sweating a lot, you lose some sodium through the skin, particularly if you're on a high salt diet, because the body's doing everything it can to get rid of this excess toxic waste. So but you can get by increasing your caloric intake, because you're eating more vegetables. If you want to increase your sodium intake even more, you can do things like carrot, celery, beet juice, and other things, rather than these fractionated sugar drinks that people use for rehydration purposes when they're out running marathons and doing bike races and all that kind of stuff. So you don't have to compromise your health in order to be able to function, even as an athlete.
I love that. I think people's perception is when, well, and we'll get into protein in a little bit, but it's the whole perception that we're not getting enough of these things. Then when most people, what they're really truly lacking is fiber, and nobody's worried about fiber.
Yeah. So the reality is that most people are suffering diseases as a consequence of dietary excess. It's either dietary excess from meat, fish, fowl, eggs, dairy products, oil, salt, and sugar, causing fat and visceral fat. And either the immune system becomes suppressed, and so people are suffering from cancer and other problems, or it's heightened, so they're developing autoimmune diseases and other problems. It's interesting, the treatment of autoimmune disease or the treatment of cancer often results in the opposite end of the problem. Essentially, these are opposite ends of the same coin. And so, now immunotherapy in cancer is designed to try to stimulate the immune system to function better, and seems to have less side effects than some of the immunosuppressive treatments that are, have maybe used in the past. So, these aren't all unrelated conditions. And the thing that they all have in common comes back to diet and lifestyle choices. And, that's why you'll see so many similarities. That's why if you take people with heart disease, diabetes, cancer, and you fast them, they all tend to get predictable improvements. Even though the conditions appear to be very different, there's actually a common unifying force to all of them.
Well, if we have time, I'll definitely want to go into fasting a little bit, because I went to the True North Health Center last year twice, and some of the best times I've had all year by meeting the most interesting people. And actually, sitting with your staff was really, again, some of the highlights of my year was having fun with your staff, talking about nutrition and health in a way that I've never experienced before with any doctor, to where they actually not only had the time for me, but they were interested in knowing down to the micro details. So something that I've never experienced before. I can't wait to do it again. And this year in 2024, what I look forward to is one or two water fasts. Now that Chef AJ did it, I'm going to do it too. Not that I was waiting for her, but I think I'm at that level where in my reset and in my journey, it probably do me some good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we collect doctors at the center that are kind of unicorns, because they're really unusual, very rare. They're doctors that aren't complete idiots.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. The conversations that I got into were, to say that they were different, be the understatement of the year. We went into blood work, but we went into the type of blood work that was specific to me. And then we were able to dive deep into those things and address which things I wanted to work on for this coming year. So I'm pretty well equipped as I move forward, and I know and have a roadmap as to what my body really needs. That's never been. I'm a Kaiser patient or customer or client, or one of the masses or one of the herd. But Kaiser, as much as I like some things about them, I still think they're still in the very much part of the sick care system. And these doctors are still struggling, only because I know for a fact that doctors are still prescribing, or are really starting to prescribe medications for the new modern medication for weight loss and things like that. Those things are really being not necessarily, I don't want to blame the doctor for pushing those medicines, but the consumer is asking for those type of medications, and the doctors are prescribing those medications intended for diabetes. And
the alternative, though, would be doing dangerous and radical interventions, like teaching people to eat healthy, or exercising, or going to bed on time, or God forbid, fasting.
Yeah.
So when you're faced with actually dealing with the cause of the problem and correcting it versus a simple pill or potion, you can understand the desire. Especially these doctors are having to see 26 patient contacts a day plus email contacts. They don't really have time to sit down and talk to you, even if they knew about it, even if they believed it. They don't really have the opportunity to spend the kind of time it takes to help motivate a person to make fundamental diet and lifestyle changes. And so most people like yourself are told basically it can't be done. It's not possible. And if you look at the statistics, there's no reason to believe that it would be commonly done, because most people fail. 95% recidivism rate, terrible. You have a better chance, if you're a doctor, of helping people cure many serious diseases than obesity. Obesity statistic success is extremely low, regardless of what type of medical intervention is done, because they don't ever actually deal with the reason why people are overweight to begin with. And the drugs that are being used currently aren't going to turn out to be any more successful, in my opinion, than the past, whether it's the fen or whatever the last range of medications are that try to block one factor or another in order to be able to support short-term weight loss. What's good for short-term weight loss is not necessarily good for long-term health. And a lot of times we create more problems than we solve in our attempts, our well-meaning but misguided attempts to help people lose weight.
I use this term often, Dr. Goldhammer, which is, I'm a guy sort of made in the streets, and I come from a background where you had to get out there and you had to survive. And to survive, at times you have to walk through fire. And to survive in your battle of obesity and this whole thing, you have to walk through fire. The idea of getting injected or getting a series of injections to shift your behavior, it's never going to happen. It doesn't affect your behavior.
Well, the promise is that you won't have to change your behavior.
Right.
You can still eat the same greasy, fatty, slimy, processed crap. You'll just eat less of it.
And that's what they do.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that that's not true. The problem is just eating less of it, as good as that might be, doesn't actually solve the long-term problem. We still have problems. We're still going to need to fundamentally change the nature of the diet. And if you do that, then the need for medications and surgeries and all the rest of it becomes secondary.
Let me read this real quick from a woman that just subscribed to the channel. Her name is Ann Williams, and hopefully it's okay to say this I wanted to welcome her to the channel. I appreciate her reaching out after she watched me on the Chef AJ interview, and she says she's now a subscriber to the channel. Thank you for that. Thank you for telling others about your journey. It's a great inspiration to me. I just want to share this with you, Dr. Goldhammer, because you're the cause of me paying it forward. So I want to just keep thanking you for what you've done for me. She says, after living with some of the same issues as you, major inflammation issues, bulging disc, messed up knee, difficulty moving, and a lot of chronic pain, I am at the start of my whole food plant, she did the acronym WFPB, whole food plant-based journey this year. Blessings to you and your gorgeous wife as we wish you luck and courage. And I want to wish her luck and courage, and also suggest to Anne that she reach out to you and reach out to the True North Health Center. I really want to plug the fact that you make this so affordable for most people. And I'm just going to keep being probably your big advocate, because if more people know about the True North Health Center, especially if there's somewhere in California, just make your way there. If you're across the country, try to figure it out. Chef AJ and I were laughing on our show about the fact that you make it so affordable to go to your place that is less affordable. It's more affordable to stay at the True North Health Center than not a good hotel, a basic low frills hotel, and you have doctors at your bed, at your feet twice a day. I just don't know how you're able to pull that up, but I know it's for the right reason, and it's clearly working, because I talked the 2 times that I've been there, I talked to the people in the dining area when we meet for any one of the 3 meals that you have prepared for us. 3 times a day, we have just beautiful meals in program, and we get to eat as much as we want. We're never hungry. The opposite, we're probably, I can't say over consuming, because nothing's calorically dense, so we don't go over in calories. So, and it's beautifully prepared. So I just want to share to Anne that please reach out. I think a phone consult, and I don't know if you're doing Zoom consults. I imagine you are. They're very inexpensive.
Well, just so you know, your viewers, we offer a no-cost phone screening. So if they go to the website at truenorthhealth.com, complete the registration forms, I'll review their medical history, offer a no-cost phone conversation, and then if it's appropriate, if they've got a situation that might benefit, we can match them up with an appropriate doctor, whether it's remotely through our telemedicine, or if they want to come to the center or go to one of the other places that does fasting supervision. They can certainly do that. We do have a doctor now, Dr. Wise, who does some remote fasting support along with their local doctor, if they have a local doctor that's supportive. So there are lots of different ways that they can learn about this. The websites are information intense. Everything's freely available. We're even now live streaming our lectures that we do at the center, so people even remotely can go to the website and participate in those classes and things like that. So lots of opportunity that is available to people if they're serious about learning about fasting and how fasting and this type of diet can help them overcome their health problems.
Oh, I love it. I think that's wonderful. Dr. Weiss is my doctor, by the way. So
he's great. He's a newer
wonderful
doctor on our staff, but he is fabulous. He's really been a fabulous addition to our doctor staff. It's so rare that we get a new doctor. Most of our doctors have been with us their whole careers. We're like the firm, once they start, they don't leave. Because a lot of these doctors are here because they like the idea of seeing people actually get well. We have this residency program where doctors come and train, and the very, very best of them are the ones that we keep. But one of the most common comments of the residents is, wow, I never saw anybody get well before. If you have high blood pressure and you're treated conventionally, your doctor will guarantee you, if you do what you're told exactly, you'll never get well. You'll be sick forever and you'll be on drugs the rest of your life. Same thing with diabetes, same thing with many forms of cancer. They're telling them right up front, look, we're going to give you this treatment that has all kinds of side effects, and we guarantee it will not work at getting you well.
That's the system that we live in. No, I appreciate it. Let's go into sugar.
You can keep eating whatever you want. So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Enjoy life.
Yeah.
Sugar.
Well, sugar, I don't think there's a lot of controversy on sugar. Sugar is empty calories that stimulates insulin production. When the insulin goes up, driving the sugars down, the brain thinks you're starving, so you get binging, you get craving, you're eating a bunch of stuff without satiety feedback. If you want to get fat, Sugar's a great way to do it. Just eat lots of highly processed refined carbohydrates. And that's one of the reasons why, the majority of people are now overweight or obese, is because they're eating diets full of sugar, full of oil, and full of salt. If you remove salt, oil, and sugar, you remove this tendency towards obesity, and people will begin progressively losing weight. And even people that are significantly overweight, they can be 80 pounds or 100 pounds overweight. They can still lose weight and continue to lose weight, get down to a healthier level, and without having to take pills, potions, powders, surgeries in order to do it.
You want to hear something funny? One of the things that I said on the Chef AJ show was that, one of the struggles in my house when I started this way of eating was that my wife is the opposite side of the coin. My wife struggles keeping weight. And we had a great, funny meeting with Dr. Wise about this. And she doesn't like beans. So it makes it a challenge. And what we had to modify, all we had to modify to help her keep her weight, Dr. Goldhammer, was just add more nuts, avocados, and almond butter to her diet. And that girl has put on 2 or 3 pounds, and that's all she needed to feel safe, because it's scary when she starts losing weight.
Right. So different people have different digestive capacities. Some need a little bit more concentrated food. Like, for example, when you're dealing with children, you may do the diet slightly different with kids, where you have a little bit more, instead of rice, it might be a little rice pasta. It might be a little, because you have a smaller capacity, higher density food might be needed. For somebody that has a really healthy system that absorbs everything they eat, you may need to get them large volumes of low density food, lots of salad and steamed vegetables. And, if you get fat easy, that's not a bad thing necessarily. That just means you've got really good plumbing. You're the one whose ancestors went on that long boat ride and they survived. And for all we know, they ate everybody else. But whatever it is, they made it. And those are good genes in a setting of scarcity. If you're in an environment of scarcity and you have good genes, you survive. All them people that eat whatever they want and never gain any weight, they're not going to make it.
All right, so let's go into the combination of all three. What is the problem with the combination of all three put together, Dr. Goldhammer?
Well, the problem is it's the perfect formula for gaining fat, and particularly visceral fat. So the question isn't, are you going to be fat? It's a question of how fat are you going to be? And the idea is of the pleasure trap, the hidden force that undermines health and happiness, is this artificial stimulation of dopamine that comes from those chemicals. It makes it inevitable. And so there's no amount of discipline or anything else that overrides that drug-like effect in the majority of people. Now, some people naturally have very sensitive satiety mechanisms. So they can eat little bits of this and that, and they're not going to get fat. Because, they're the people that, the cookies that come in 2 cookies, they'll have half of one cookie and then they put it all away. Unlike you or I, who might eat all of it and the packaging, you know what I mean? And so for us, we're not going to do well trying to pretend ourselves. To give you an example, if you have a patient or if you have a friend who's an alcoholic, okay, and you go up to him and say, oh, your life sucks because of the alcohol. They don't go, oh, it's the alcohol? I had no idea. Oh, well, I just won't drink anymore. Yeah. Right? Because they're going to just tell you to mind your own business. The same thing is true if you try to explain to somebody how their diet, their salt, oil, and sugar is making them fat. They don't want to hear about that. Once people adopt a health promoting diet and they see they can have control over it, that's, I think, where some of the depression goes away, because they realize it's not helpless and hopeless. They can regulate, plus their blood sugars start regulating, so they don't have the cravings and the binging. Plus their sleep quality improves because they're not waking up with all these biochemical variations. Now their energy goes up, metabolism goes up, they feel more like exercising, they start exercising. Now they get additional improvements between the sleep, the diet, the exercise. Now they're doomed to success, because once they start gaining that control, the ability to resist some of the temptation improves. Now, it doesn't make it easy, especially for people. They go to work and there's like candy balls all around the place and everybody's pushing the stuff on them, and socially it's a problem. When they're losing weight, nobody cared about you before if you were fat, but now you're starting to get thinner. They're worried, where are you going to get your protein from? You're going to get deficiencies. They're all hypervigilant because they're caught in the pleasure trap and they're addicted to that artificial stimulation, and they're not going to want to hear it any more than your alcoholic friends or your cigarette smoking friends or anybody else addicted to this dopamine cascade.
I love it when people tell you, "Oh my God, stop! You're getting too skinny." You're kidding me.
Think about it.
Go ahead.
It's considered rude to walk up to somebody and say, "Oh my God, look how fat you are! You're gonna blow up. Give me that!" and take your food. But if you're thin, it's like, "Oh, you're too thin. You're thin as a barn. What that? Eat." Put it this way, kids that are fat, oh, they're so cute. If they're thin, they call child services.
Yeah, 100%.
If you're outside the standard deviation, if you're outside the norm, you've got a problem. And since everybody's fat and sick right now, just about, if you're metabolically healthy, like one of the 12% of the population that's metabolically healthy, you're an outlier. And you're going to piss people off, you and your thin body and your perky smile. You make them sick.
Let's go to caffeine. Here's where you really, I mean, you've helped me in so many ways. I have to tell you, my wife has been asking me to get off of caffeine for years. Even though she has 1 or 2 cups a day, she says, you should get off of caffeine. You should get off of caffeine. You don't need it. You don't need it. Whatever she says, I usually do the opposite. I'm kind of like a resistant child. When I heard you say it, I thought, let me give it a try. If I'm going to remove these things, let me remove caffeine. And what I was able to connect with is how much calmer I was feeling and how less apt I was to just grabbing things without thinking. I was calmer, and because I was calmer, I was able to process a little better than just manically moving throughout the house, or in the cupboards and everything else. So I think that helped me a little bit. I don't know if I'm way off.
No, I think you're right. It's more than that, though. Caffeine is a highly addictive nervous system stimulant. It has a 7-8 hour half-life. The coffee you eat, even early in the day, affects the quality of your sleep. So when you get off coffee, you start sleeping better. Metabolic rate picks up. It's easier to lose weight. Cognitively, it's like any addictive drug, cocaine, anything. These have negative long-term effects. Endogenous production of cholesterol, different issues that go on metabolically that are not desirable. So getting rid of caffeine turns out to be of great benefit to many people. It's also one of the more painful drugs to withdraw from. We find we try to get people off the caffeine even before they fast, just because it makes getting into fasting a lot easier. So caffeine, again, no calories in caffeine, but it can still be a contributing factor to compromising your health. So getting off caffeine is good.
Can you speak a little more about that? Because I've heard that you can fast and be on caffeine.
Well, I mean, you can do whatever you want. I mean, people do all kinds of crazy, stupid things. We don't recommend that. I was on one show where they were trying to get me to say that coffee was a plant-based food. And of course it is, and so is cocaine. We don't recommend that either. But, now the thing is, because it does come from plants, there's still some nutrients in it. And for some people, coffee may be their only source of antioxidants because they're eating such a crappy diet. And so they're trying to argue, well, there's antioxidant or resveratrol. There's in red wine, there's some resveratrol, powerful antioxidant. It comes from the skin of grapes. If you want resveratrol, eat some grapes. You don't need to drink alcohol with its 7 calories per gram, liver compromising, health compromising, cognitive impairment inducing.
Hold on. You're getting ahead of me. Alcohol. Let's go there.
Well, how fat do you want to be? Men get those really attractive beer bellies that women like so much. What they like even more is the plumber's crack. Oh my gosh, that drives them crazy. That's why they have to make the genes come up a little bit higher, because they were just going crazy. They couldn't control themselves. So alcohol with 7 calories per gram, it's just, you might as well just be drinking pure fat. High caloric density, no satiety feedback. Plus there's the disinhibiting effect. You know how annoying some people are? Put them on a bunch of alcohol, you notice they don't get better. Okay? So it brings out, in my mind, the worst of people, but it disinhibits them so they can feel more comfortable socially, especially engaging behaviors that they wouldn't normally allow themselves to engage in. And as a consequence, people get in all kinds of trouble, not just weight. But if you want to get fat, probably nothing better than including alcohol in your diet, because that's going to be able to put on the pounds just about easier than anything.
Yeah, it's sad. I got to tell you, alcohol has to be probably one of the saddest ones, because I know people. I mean, I particularly know a guy who I love dearly, but overweight, went through the gastric bypass, did the whole thing, lost 100 pounds, going through changing his mind, because that doesn't fix the habits. And again, I go back to, you got to walk through fire. If you don't walk through fire, it's going to catch up with you somewhere. He's having a hard time and letting go of the alcohol. And the other day when I confronted him with him, as much as I could hold back and just be kind about it, I found him literally upset with me, saying, you can take anything away from me, but don't take the times that I spend together with my friends having some drinks. By the way, this person's already lost a toe, probably on his way to losing a second toe. And alcohol was the one thing,
Well,
Dr.
that's a
Gold.
weight loss technique, isn't it? How much do
Yes.
toes weigh?
Yeah. I know. That's
Maybe
what's
they could
happening.
take the whole foot off. That would be an extra couple pounds, wouldn't it?
It's real. It's so.
And also, I don't know why you can't. I mean, one of the challenges is if you're not drinking, then the people that are drinking get upset
There it is.
because they perceive
is.
you as being judgmental. And also, when you're not drinking, it's hard to be around those people when they are drinking because it's hard enough to be around them anyway. But when they're under the influence of alcohol, it becomes untenable. So, if your friends, if you can't be around your friends not drinking, then it's time to make some new friends.
That's the bottom line. That's the bottom line. You have to consider your environment, and if you don't.
Well, we tell people, if you want to know if you can have something, just ask yourself if it gives you joy and comfort. We take it away. What can I say? You get nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's one that's made an impact. Dairy. We need milk.
So yeah, cow pus. It's interesting that milk, there's a limit to how much pus cells you can have in milk, 750,000 pus cells per cc. Because I guess more than that, what would it like be pure pus or something? So the idea is I think of milk as drinking, finding a cow with a festering wound and stick a straw in it and suck.
Yum. And the last, but
there's probably no food that produces more antigenic health compromise than milk, whether it's the insulin dependent type 1 diabetes that occurs in kids that are given milk, whose immune system reacts, or the teenagers with their acne, to the adults with their heart disease and cancer and diabetes, osteoporosis and other problems. So I think milk is like, I have an article I wrote, it's called Nobody Needs Milk. And it's had like 3.5 million downloads. I think they said it's absolute guarantee we'll never get funding from the American Dairy Council. But it highlights all the reasons why we wouldn't recommend dairy products for human beings.
Meat, considered a protein. To some, consider the highest form of protein. Can you help?
Well, it's certainly the highest likelihood of causing health compromise. So, meat is a real problem. Excess fat and protein in general, everything from osteoporosis, cancer to not to mention the impact it has on the environment, not to mention the fact that, some people believe that sentient creatures should be tortured all their life, killed and eaten if we don't need to. So, people make moral, ethical, and spiritual judgment, which is the majority of vegans are actually more environmentally and morally and socially driven than health, which is a bit of a problem. That's why we have a lot of very unhealthy vegans. They may be going to heaven, but it's not going to delay how quickly they go there unless they also get on an SOS-free diet.
Beautifully said, because that's exactly where I was going, was processed foods. And the processed vegans are going to have issues, right?
Yeah, I think honestly, as bad as meat is, in some cases, they'd be better off eating meat than some of these highly processed vegan foods that they're pitching. So
I hear the argument of food cost, and I see it at the grocery store when you go.
Food costs.
Well,
come on, look at you got 3 billion people on the planet that make less than $5 a day. What do they eat?
Plants,
rice and beans, local vegetables. It's the cheapest cost per calorie food. Even in the United States, you can get organically grown rice. Go to Costco and buy a bag of rice. Very affordable, lowest cost per calorie. The highest cost per calorie are these highly processed packaged foods that people are eating.
And by the way, they keep getting emptier and emptier and more filled with air, and people are still paying for it. It's it's just like buying bottled water.
I hear the ink on the containers that was soy ink, so maybe it's vegan.
The healthiest is the healthiest. No, it's so true.
I mean, packaging,
I find myself going through the grocery store, and I don't know if there's 10% of the grocery store that I shop from. It's right around probably between 8 or 5%, very small area of the grocery store for me.
Well, I said that at one point that 95% of the foods in Whole Foods have nothing to do with Whole Foods. But 99% of the profit have nothing to do with it. So I have a different attitude now. We had the owner of Whole Foods before it got sold to Amazon, and they explained to me that if it wasn't for the people buying the meat, fish, fowl, eggs, dairy products, oil, salt, and particularly the chocolate and alcohol, there would be no Whole Foods, because that's where all the profit is. So now when I go into Whole Foods and I see people buying all this health compromising foods, I thank them,
Yeah.
for their support, because I realized that if it wasn't for them, the little bit of fruits and vegetables and a few bulk grains and stuff probably wouldn't be there. So I just go around the store and thank all those people for buying what they're buying.
All right. So I want to go into my, Chef AJ asked me if I've had a snack accident in the time that I've been doing this over a year. So she has that term. She coined the term snack accident. I can pretty comfortably say I haven't had a snack accident because anything that I've done over the course of the last year has all been intentional. So I have tried different things. Some of them have worked, some of them haven't worked. I find that going back to the way you teach us to eat seem to be what works best for me so far. But right now, because I've gained some body fat, because I got into some pretty intense movement things. I'm up to running like 12 miles. Again, from a guy that had a bulged disc that couldn't hardly walk to the corner because of so much pain in the lower back and inflammation around the body. At probably over 300 pounds, movement was not a thing. I was literally more preparing to die at 56 than now. I find myself with my best years ahead of me. I feel like I literally feel like if I'm in my 30s, and I'm not kidding. I mean, I crank out 100 push-ups a day. I do so many things that I never did before. And my body
Are you sure that you've been gaining fat and not just lean tissue? Because, as people begin exercising, they will get heavier because they'll start putting more muscle mass on.
Well, the DEXA scan showed that in the last 6 months, I put on 2 or 3 pounds of muscle, but I've also put on about 13 pounds of fat.
Okay.
So that did concern me, and it sort of pushed the idea of a reset. And for a reset, I mean, I'll give you an example. I don't know if you can see this. I'm going a little bit you and Chef AJ, but I'm going with 1 pound of vegetables for breakfast. This is rice, cauliflower, onions, garlic. Oh, I forgot the garlic in this batch, but just all veggies. Probably out of this 1 pound, I'll bet you we're less than 170 calories.
Yeah.
But I'm taking the philosophy of if I'm not hungry, if I'm not ready to eat vegetables, if I'm not hungry enough. So I was going to start with that.
What's your feeding window that you're using now?
Well, that's a really good question. So I'm starting to eat usually between 10 and noon. So okay. I already had I brought this over for an example for you because I cooked it, but I already ate a pound of that this morning at around 10 a.m.
And what time is the last meal?
That's the new thing. And this reset, I'm doing my last meal at sunset and it feels really good.
Yeah, that's fine. So what's going to happen is you're going to start losing about 2 pounds a week down to optimal weight. Now, you'll lose a little bit more than that, but you'll also be regaining some lean tissue. So you have to be a little careful with the scale.
Can I tell you a little bit about the other meals?
Yeah.
So the other meal, so the first is veggies, a pound of veggies. The second meal, whenever I'm hungry again, I'll do another pound of veggies with about a half a block of tofu for some protein.
Okay.
Then the third meal was a pound of veggies again, a complex carbohydrate serving, which would be either rice or sweet potato, and half a block of tofu or beans, and then some berries.
Yeah, you may not need two blocks of more highly processed, high-fat tofu a day.
Good.
So that's 55% of calories from fat. You may want to do a little bit more. First of all, you may only need 1 serving a day of that.
Okay.
So you might try that. And the way you're going to tell those, if you're losing a couple pounds a week, then whatever you're doing is fine. You know what I mean?
Okay.
If you're not losing weight, though, the first thing I'd cut back on is instead of 2 servings of tofu a day, do 1 and use more. Make sure you're getting huge salads and steamed vegetables in there.
Yes.
People really should look at you and say, "Oh my God, how are you going to eat all that?" Because of the volume of the salad and the vegetables.
Huge. It's hard. It's hard to get all this down. I mean, I'm on day 3. Today is day 3 of the reset.
And if you eat those first, there's not enough room left to be eating too much of the more processed foods, but particularly something like tofu, which is a more processed food. That's something we would use when we're trying to put weight on people, not necessarily when we're trying to take it off. Not that it's a bad food.
But here's the bottom line. Do I get an A- or a B+?
Well, what's your rate of weight loss? That's what I'm going to be taking a look at, because it's a combination of, are you sleeping enough? Are you exercising enough? And also, believe it or not, I think that even stress levels can be an issue here, because when people are under high levels of stress and have lots of stress hormones, I think that alters the rate of weight loss as well. So what I would suggest is that you not watch the news too much, and don't be around energy vampires. You know, the people that do what they do best, and that's make other people as miserable as they are. So by comparison, they don't have to feel so bad. So if you avoid the energy vampires, reduce your stress, cut down to 1 serving of the tofu a day, my prediction is that you're going to be losing 2 pounds a week. If you're losing 2 pounds a week, you're going to win.
You're making this one of my favorite episodes right now. Okay, so Chef AJ mentioned something that I wanted to run by you. So I told Chef AJ, I'm so grateful to her. And the same thing goes to you if you ever want to, but you live too close to want to come hang out in Napa Valley. But if you ever wanted to, the door is open. You know, I'm fortunate enough that I own, like you, some real estate in this beautiful part of Northern California. And I do have guest house / vacation property that I let my family and friends use. Um, and Chef AJ said, gosh, wouldn't it be neat if you did something where people can come and sort of, I don't know if you use the word detox, but she says, kind of a safe zone, you know, and then that my mind started racing and I thought, God, would it be neat to set up a place where people can come and they can come and everything is stocked the way it should be stocked at home, just an example place. And I want to come up with an idea for some of the people, because I've talked to some of the people at your place, and I'm not going to ever put you on the spot with this, but I just fantasize about, can people come and use this place? It's a beautiful Craftsman 2-bedroom, 2-bath bungalow, just, you know, Viking range and all that. It's super sweet. Sure. And I just fantasize about people, instead of going to vacation, to come drink and eat, which is what they do in Napa Valley, and they come here and spend $500 or $600 a day in this valley poisoning themselves. Wouldn't it be nice if instead of doing that, because we have beautiful places to hike and we have beautiful places to nature watch, we have so many cool things to do that don't revolve around the gluttony of saturated foods, salt, sugar, and oil, and the alcohol volume that people consume. Wouldn't it be nice if there was a place that they can come and they could be an example? Because the place is already furnished and set up. Absolutely. I wanted to put that out there. I actually wanted to check with Chef AJ, and I said, Chef AJ, I'd love for you to certify this place, Chef AJ certified. Like,
right, you should talk to her about that. And the other thing people do is they'll go on vacations where they'll make sure they can get a place that has a kitchen or a kitchenette. And sometimes they'll even use the companies like Whole Harvest or Leafside. So they'll get some SOS-free food options available that are convenient. So I think you're on the right track, though. People need a place to decompress and that's supportive of healthful living. And if you set that place up, let me know, because we'll let our patients know. We've got 50,000 patients that, you know, might appreciate having options where they can go someplace to, you know, have.
Well, and I know you're super busy, but again, I love, you know, for a minute there in my life, for about 4 years, I was a motivational speaker in the space of real estate and all, and that because it's what I've done my entire adult career. But I love to present at your place one day. I think it would just be so much fun. From a fun and a practical place, you can count on me. If you need to fill a lot, if whatever, I'll do it. It's for free. I'm not going to charge $1. It's an easy 45-minute drive, and it's a beautiful drive. I do that with all the pleasure in the world. I think we're coming towards the end. I can't thank you enough, my friend. I really can't thank you enough.
It's my pleasure. And let us know when you're here. We'd love to have you present. I think the patients would love hearing from you.
Oh, it'd be a lot of fun. Consider it done.
Okay.
See you soon. I'll be over. I'll be setting up my appointments.